Barry Gibb, born on September 1st, 1946, in Douglas, Isle of Man, is one of the most influential figures in modern music. His early years were shaped by frequent moves from Manchester, England, to Redcliffe, Queensland, Australia, where his musical path began to unfold. Alongside his brothers Maurice and Robin, Barry formed the foundation of the Bee Gees, a group that would forever change the landscape of popular music. From their early years, the Gibb brothers had an almost intuitive understanding of music, a bond that allowed them to create timeless melodies. Barry's natural talent as a songwriter soon became apparent, and he took the lead in crafting hits that would later define the 1970s, especially with his signature falsetto. The Bee Gees' blend of harmonies, emotional depth, and innovation caught the attention of millions, making Barry a central figure in pop and disco history. The Bee Gees and their revolutionary sound. As the frontman of the Bee Gees, Barry Gibb became synonymous with the disco era and the evolution of pop music. Known for his falsetto voice, which became a defining characteristic of the group's sound, Barry wrote some of the most iconic songs of the 1970s. Tracks like Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, and Night Fever not only dominated the charts, but became anthems that captured the spirit of a generation. The Bee Gees' massive success, especially with the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, cemented their place in musical history. However, it wasn't just their chart success that made them legendary. It was the emotional depth and universal appeal of Barry's songwriting. His ability to craft melodies that resonated with people from all walks of life made the Bee Gees' music timeless, a legacy that continues to influence artists today. Barry Gibb's influence beyond the Bee Gees. Barry's songwriting genius extended far beyond his work with the Bee Gees. He became a prolific writer and producer for other artists, creating chart-topping hits across genres. Songs like Islands in the Stream, a duet by Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, and Heartbreaker by Dionne Warwick showcased Barry's versatility. His collaborations were not just successful, they became beloved pieces of musical history. Barry's ability to transcend musical boundaries, moving from pop to soul to country, helped establish him as one of the most versatile and sought-after songwriters of his time. The Bee Gees' influence, guided by Barry's leadership, reached across continents, and his songs continue to inspire and resonate with fans worldwide. His creative genius touched the hearts of listeners and artists alike, making him a respected figure across the entire music industry. The Bee Gees' tragedy and Barry's resilience. Despite the Bee Gees' phenomenal success, Barry Gibb's life was marked by profound personal tragedy. The deaths of his brothers Andy, Maurice, and Robin left Barry as the last surviving member of the group, a loss that deeply affected him. Each brother's passing was a painful reminder of how much they had shared in both life and music. Barry often spoke about the grief of outliving the brothers with whom he had created so much music. Yet, rather than retreating into silence, Barry continued to perform and record music. His 2016 solo album, In the Now, revealed a more introspective side of his artistry, showcasing the emotional weight of losing his brothers while still honoring their memory. In interviews, Barry has been candid about his sorrow, but also about his commitment to continuing the Bee Gees' legacy, preserving their contribution to music. Barry Gibb's dual identity and ties to the UK and US. Barry Gibb's life has been marked by his connection to both the UK and the US. Originally from the Isle of Man and raised in Manchester, Barry moved to the United States in 1974 at the height of the Bee Gees' fame. In 2009, Barry and Linda became naturalized citizens of the US, though they retained their British citizenship, reflecting their deep ties to both nations. Barry's connection to his homeland remains strong, and he frequently visits the UK, though he spends most of his time in the US. One of the most notable chapters of Barry's life in America was his purchase of the legendary home of country music icons Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash. The property, located in Hendersonville, Tennessee, was intended to serve as a creative retreat for musicians. However, in 2007, a fire destroyed the house, marking a heartbreaking end to Barry's vision for the property. Despite this setback, Barry remains deeply tied to both the UK and the US, and his dual citizenship reflects his lifelong connection to both countries. Barry Gibb and his musical retreat in Hendersonville. In 2006, Barry Gibb purchased the former home of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash in Hendersonville, Tennessee, with the goal of transforming it into a creative retreat for musicians. The house held immense historical value, as it had been home to two of country music's most legendary figures. Barry envisioned it as a place where artists could come together to create and find inspiration. Tragically, in 2007, the house was destroyed by a fire during renovations, a devastating blow to Barry's plans. The blaze was believed to have started accidentally, but the loss was still deeply painful for Barry, who had hoped to honor the legacy of Cash and Carter while creating a space for new musical magic. Though a new house was eventually built on the site, the history of the original home could never be replaced. Barry and his family eventually decided to sell the property in 2014, bringing an end to that chapter of their lives. The complex relationship between Barry Gibb and John Lennon. For decades, fans and music historians have wondered about the nature of the relationship between the Bee Gees and the Beatles, especially between Barry Gibb and John Lennon. Barry has always spoken of his admiration for Lennon, even before they met. In the early 1960s, Barry, along with his brothers, was captivated by the Beatles' revolutionary sound. He described hearing their songs, like Please, Please Me and She Loves You, as electrifying experiences that forever shaped his musical path. When Barry finally met Lennon at a music industry party in the late 1960s, he was struck by Lennon's presence and intellectual depth. Despite the public rivalry between the two groups, Barry suspected that Lennon, a fellow innovator, respected the Bee Gees' ability to evolve and stay relevant in an ever-changing musical landscape. Barry Gibb's reflections on John Lennon's death. In 1980, the world was shocked by the tragic death of John Lennon. Barry Gibb, who had been deeply affected by Lennon's music, was particularly moved by the loss. He was in a studio in Miami when the news broke, and he described the moment as if the world just stopped. For Barry, Lennon's death was not just the loss of a peer, but the loss of a cultural giant whose music had challenged the status quo and inspired millions. Barry admitted that he cried upon hearing the news, grieving not just for Lennon's family, but for the millions of people who had looked up to him. Now, decades later, Barry speaks of Lennon not as a mythic figure, but as a human being, flawed, brilliant, and courageous. Barry's acknowledgement of Lennon's brilliance and humanity is a rare glimpse into the deep respect and admiration he had for the former Beatle. Barry Gibb's final tribute to John Lennon. As he nears the end of his own incredible journey, Barry Gibb has begun to speak more candidly about his life, his music, and his relationships, including his reflections on John Lennon. At 78, with decades of music and personal experiences behind him, Barry no longer hides behind the polite formalities often expected of celebrities. He has been open about how John Lennon's brutal honesty and artistic freedom inspired him. Barry admits that after meeting Lennon, he stopped trying to please everyone and instead focused on creating music that meant something to him personally. He attributes much of the Bee Gees' creative evolution to the lessons he learned from Lennon, particularly in terms of pushing boundaries and embracing vulnerability in music. Barry's tribute to Lennon is not just a reflection of their shared history in the music industry, but a profound acknowledgement of the ways Lennon's life and work shaped his own.